I was actually a high school English teacher in my former life. No art teacher ever saw any promise in me. It was something I stumbled upon when I was an adult. I met some guy named Amazing Walter, and he showed me how to do some hand stacking with sand. And I was astounded by what sand can do. Where I grew up in Michigan, the sand doesn't do what Gulf Coast sand does. We've got really good sand here along the Gulf Coast. And you can do something with any kind of sand, but having good sand is really a bonus. And so while I was still teaching, I was spending my vacations and my weekends out here on the beach, playing in the sand, and I think it's the temporary nature of it that attracted me. And some people say you spend hours, days, weeks, months even working on a sand project, and then it goes away. Well, it's sort of the same concept as buying a rose. You don't expect the rose to live forever, but we also have figured out ways to make sand sculptures last a lot longer. We've got sculptures on our Sandcastle Trail that have been standing for 7 or 8 years.
I love what you say about the temporal nature of it, though. That's kind of immediately what drew me to sand. It almost feels like a mandala in that same way, that
yes,
it's meant to go back into the earth, if you will.
But it also makes it more fun to play with, because if you don't like something, you can wipe it out and rebuild it or carve it into something else. Sand is so fast. I actually tried carving rock at one point, and it was just soft limestone, but by the time I had one little cut in, I couldn't remember what my original plan was for that. So sand is fast. It's everywhere. People can find sand close by where they live everywhere. There's sand lots. And, so it's a really good way, I think, to get comfortable with three-dimensional creations. It's not just drawing. You have to look at it. And I think that was always my problem in school, is nobody gave me a lump of clay to play with, or something. They wanted me to draw, and my drawing still is not very good.
Is that how, or how does one of these elaborate sculptures begin for you? Is it a brainstorm that's happening in real time? Do you go in with a loose idea and you just kind of let things form as they will?
Yes. Different sand sculptors have different processes. A lot of them will do elaborate drawings, or even create a mock-up, out of clay or something. For me, it's much looser. I get really good ideas while I'm in the shower. Sometimes hot water is good. And then once I have a kernel of an idea, then I just keep running it through my mind. What will it turn into? How will I pack the sand? What shape will I pack it in? What will my first cut be? And then it just sort of takes a life of its own, and often becomes something very different from what I had originally envisioned.
That's good flexibility of mind. I like that. I've noticed that there's kind of some themes that connect, at least some of the pieces I saw on your website. I saw that people were involved quite a bit, and kind of common objects maybe from our day-to-day life, but almost done in a whimsical way, a way that is a little more dreamlike. Where do you think that, or how does that play out?
That is often how my sculptures have been described, as whimsical. I think it's because I don't have any kind of art background, no training. One of the sculptors I work with a lot is my nephew, Emerson. He has helped me for the last 10 years. And now whenever we get invited to a doubles contest, we're partners. And he is trained artist. You know, he's got his degree in fine art from the University of Michigan. And I really feel that makes us really good partners, because my stuff just comes out of, you know, my 60 years of living on this planet, things that I see that I will make notes of or take pictures of and say, you know, this is something that I want to do something with in sand.
For sure. I mean, to me, when I look at your sculptures, the whimsy of them maybe makes them seem more gravity defying in some ways too, you know, because I think that's what a lot of us are astounded about. And maybe somehow we can make sense of a stacking castle. But, you know, when you've done, especially some of these figurative pieces, it's tougher for me to understand how you did that, right? which is fun. I mean, that stretches the medium, right?
Right, exactly. And it's so wonderful going to these events. You know, we've really missed them over the past year with the pandemic. But the contests such as Sandfest, and we have our Sandcastle Days here on South Padre Island, where the artist has a lot of freedom to choose subject matter, to choose style, genre. You know, we've had some really intense architectural pieces, a lot of figures, faces, but just seeing what comes out of the minds of these artists is fabulous. We're very lucky this past year. Unlucky for the Canadians, but we've had a couple of Canadians that are hanging out here because they can't get in and out of Canada without, you know, long quarantines. So they're looking for places to hang out and carve. And we have our Sandcastle Village here where we can just let them loose. And, you know, what do you want to make? Let's do it.
Sandfest is typically held in October. Is that right? Or no?
No, it's usually in April. This year, I think they weren't sure what was going to happen with COVID, so they scheduled it later in the fall. And it's actually 2 weeks after our event, so it's going to make it easier for people who enjoy seeing professional sand sculpture. You can go from one event to another, and actually, there's 3 big events in a row. There's Virginia Beach Neptune Festival is at the end of September, and then our event, and then Sandfest. So it also helps make it easier to get, like, the European sculptors. You know, they can fly over for one thing and then attend all 3 events, and it saves everyone money.
Yeah, absolutely. And your event, you're talking about the South Padre Sandcastle. You said Sandcastle Days, right? Mm-hmm. And when will that be held this year?
That will be the first weekend in October. So okay. We will be starting on our demo sculpture something like the 27th of September. And that is also interesting for people to come watch and see what we do. It's not anything like what Sandfest does. Sandfest demo sculpture is unbelievable. It's so huge. Ours is considerably smaller, but we have a narrower beach too. So we're working with that kind of constraint. But the actual event, the contest, is that weekend of the 1st, and we'll have vendors out, and they have bouncy toys for the kids to play, and it's a big festival. It's fun, and we were very sad we couldn't do it last year, so we're going to make up for it this year with a really, really good one.
That's a wonderful plug. I'd also like to kind of acknowledge that this all culminated in a book for you as well. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I've actually written 3 books on sand sculpture. The first one was not anything I'm terribly proud of, and the second one, it was self-published. But the third one, yes, it's Sandcastles Made Simple, and it was published in 2005. So it's not a new book, though the ebook version came out fairly recently. But I still feel like it's very valid, and is going to give people more information than they could possibly even want to see, probably, about sand sculpture. The publishers had envisioned a book for children, and I said, well, those books are out there. But when I give my sandcastle lessons, which I've been doing for about 40 years now, I find that especially the little kids, their attention span is about this long, and then they want to go play in the water or something. It's the adults and the older kids that really stay with it and that are just fascinated by what you can do with wet sand that they just had no idea. And it's a really rewarding job for me, giving the lessons and watching the light of understanding come up in their eyes when they see how compacted sand can be carved into just about anything.
I love that it's a part of your educational process too, that this is not just kind of something for you. This is a gift that you're sharing with others, right? And
very much so. In fact, we have a nonprofit corporation, Sandcastle Island Inc., where we raise money for the Sandcastle Village and the Sandcastle Trail, but we also offer free sandcastle instruction all summer, 4 nights a week for an hour a day at 5 o'clock. And we have our interns going out there and just sitting down and playing with people, showing them how to have more fun on the beach forever. It's so simple. Once you see it done, you're like, why didn't I know this already?
Maybe in parting, is there one general thing that we novice sandcastle builders could enlighten us? A tip that could possibly open us up to a broader perspective on sand.
Yes, more water. Most people have no idea how much water is required to build a good sandcastle. But one thing that you can do, you can make this for yourself very easily. You take a plastic planter or a bucket or even a big plastic cup and cut the bottom out so that you have a cylinder, like a kind of a flexible plastic cylinder. And you put that on and you fill that with really wet sand. You can add dry sand and then lots of water, or get wet sand out of the hole. But just let that settle in there, tap it a little bit, pull it off, and you will have a column of extremely compacted sand, which you can carve into, about anything you can imagine. So that would be my tip. That's the best thing you could try.